What are we going to be talking about?
Talking about accountability and the power of burning money.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, we're up and good to go. All right, we're live on Facebook. Hey everybody, I'm Caleb Berter with the Washington Farm Bureau. I work with the young farmers and ranchers. We're sponsoring this program, the Coming Home to Farm online course with Andy Junkin. And we're just going to jump into it right away. If you got questions, go ahead and throw them in the comments on the live stream or on the Zoom video. If you want to keep them private message to Facebook of the Washington Farm Bureau. I have that on my phone, so I can check out those messages there. Otherwise, we're going to be talking about accountability and the power of burning money. Andy Junkin, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. We're doing this the first Thursday of every month at 7 p.m. We're going to stick to that schedule next month. And what's the number one thing that surprised you about your family business meetings as you're going into these farm families and trying to sort them out?
Well, about a decade ago, I started doing these meetings on either a weekly basis or a monthly basis. It depends on the family. Some families do every other week. But basically, I was actually surprised, if you have a meeting and you decide on doing, say, 5 things, I was surprised that only 2 or 3 things were getting done. If you came back to the farm, say 2 weeks later. And half the good ideas that the family came up with for improving either how they work together or farm profitability, such as production changes, just never got done. And when you only get half the ideas into reality, you're losing half your profit potential. And I think this is a more of a bigger phenomenon in agriculture than we've really ever thought about. There's a huge difference. Like, there are some farms, I've seen their financial statements where they're, let's say in the dairy industry, and they're making 8% return on investment consistently. And then there's other farms that are just barely breaking even. And I really think that the ability to follow through on your ideas and get good ideas into reality and into profitability is the key determining factor.
Okay, I know you've worked with quite a few families over the last decade plus. Is there anything that sticks out from those family meetings that you can share with us, like an example of?
Yeah, I'll give you an example of a family. We'll call them the Kennedys. They're not the Kennedys, okay? But the thing is, this has started off like 10 years ago in Western Ontario, and there's 3 brothers, and they were at the point when I got called out to the farm that they were about to split up the operation. The 3 brothers never talked to each other, and their dad was really involved in day-to-day operation. He was only in his early 60s, and basically was a dictator. He ran the farm like with an iron fist. And when the boys and dad said jump, the boy said how high, and that was the kind of operation that they were in. And they were constantly bickering, like they were constantly butting heads and pulling the farm in different directions. And the thing is that we sat down and did you're from a dairy farm, right, Caleb?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the principles apply to any type of operation, but the thing is, this is a dairy farm, and they had a 14% pregnancy rate, and they should have been about 30%. And I actually got them to sit down. I was there when the veterinarian was there, and we sat down and we looked at, first of all, what it was costing the farm. We figured it was costing them about $115,000 in lost profit a year because they just were not getting cows pregnant. And this kind of stuff happens on every farm. Like, it doesn't matter. This is actually one of the best managed areas in the county. And just like you've seen this with Caleb, is that everybody's got 5% that slip between the cracks, right? It doesn't matter how good of an operation or manager you are, everybody has weaknesses, and this was their one weakness, and they were embarrassed about it, right? Did you ever have preg rate issues on your dairy operation, or?
You changed it every, I don't know, 5 to 10 years to see if you can start getting a little bit better, but we tried to make sure it stayed on track.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that with this operation, they had, in the 6 months before I met with them, they had a huge drop and they couldn't figure out why.
Well, yeah, okay. Was it their breeding program or feeding, or what was going on?
Well, they didn't know. I mean, that's why we were there. The nutritionist was there, and he had his PhD, and the veterinarian, very smart guy. And we just sat down. We tried to figure out what was going on wrong. And at the end of the meeting, each brother had one thing to look into. And one brother, he walked away, and they thought it might have been a mold in the feed. And so he went and got a feed sample, and then 2 weeks later he had that results back. And one brother who's like the golden child, we'll call him Jack. That wasn't his name, but Jack, I mean, he was probably one of the best managers or one of the smartest farmers I'll ever meet in my lifetime. But the thing is, he was supposed to go look at, just make a phone call and get a straight voltage person out there to do testing. They had done testing like a year before. They didn't think it was a big deal, but it was a possibility. And so, but he never got around to it. And you know, I don't know if you've seen that with your own with other operations, right, Caleb, where somebody says they're going to do something and they don't follow through.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's planting or turning dirt or taking care of animals. There's always somebody that's not quite keeping up their end of the boat.
Well, I mean, the thing is that Jack, he probably worked 70, 80 hours a week. And that week, especially, they just finished haylage. And I said to him, you didn't get it done. And I came back, he first of all, I didn't get it done. They were doing spring planting. Came back 2 weeks later, he still hadn't got it done. Well, in the first, and he says to me, well, I was out throwing tires on the silage pile until 11:30 last night. Are you going to do that for me while I make a phone call? And he was really mad that I was holding him accountable, being hard on him. And the week before, the 2 weeks before when we met, I said to the guys, like, what's a suitable punishment if you don't follow through with your ideas? And they threw around a bunch of ideas. And one of the ideas was to burn money. And it started out, I said, oh, fine, we'll do that. And so when I came back, I said, Jack, you got to burn $5. And he said, I mean, he did not like that at all.
No.
And the thing is, I got him to sit down and actually burn $5.
Oh, what are you doing?
You want to see a farmer cry. This is Canadian to cash.
Yeah, you're breaking the law right now.
I am not. In Canada, it's illegal to damage coin, but the laws are so old that they didn't update it for paper currency. And
okay.
But in America, it is illegal.
Yeah,
right?
we can't do that.
Absolutely. But you think about this, I mean, is everything on your farm legal? Like, I mean, maybe urinating behind the barn is illegal, right? You should theoretically use a porta potty. Now, for this farm, the next week I came back and he actually had to burn $10 because he forgot about it again. And he was mad about that. And it was such an emotional thing for him to see his money burn that when I came back the next time and he knew it was going to be $20 that he had to burn, he made the phone call and got it done. And it turned out that it was a $115,000 mistake being made because it was a stray voltage problem. They actually had, you guys have windmills. Basically, they had just installed windmills just down the road, and the electrical company made a mistake. Mm-hmm. And so they had 7 times the amount of stray voltage going through the barn. But nobody could, I mean, it would have never gotten caught for a long time if we not had the accountability there.
Yeah, if you didn't make him start burning money.
Every time I came back to the farm, I bet you if we didn't have that accountability, he would have kept on making mistakes.
Wow. And
more importantly, the issue was between the brothers, right? They had no form of accountability up to that point. It was do whatever you want, basically. And, their accountability format was dad being constant and nagging and trying to be a dictator. And, by them having an objective measure of accountability, like basically if it was written in the book, you got to follow through and do it. And even if you have an excuse, you still got to burn $5. And it just got rid of all the excuses in that operation. And, it was amazing to see how their farm, their relationships just transformed because of external frame of reference for their accountability.
Right. So you made them burn money and they figured out their production issue and their breeding issue. Did this help them just in their family too, as far as holding each other accountable, or was it just?
Let me put it this way. You had 3 brothers that were just about the day, it was January when I met with them. And they were about to it wasn't January. It was June, July. It was June. But the thing is that they a year later, they went from never talking to each other. For a year later, because they had accountability within their operation, they actually poured cement and they built a 50 cow rotary parlor. And those brothers are still farming together today. And it was all because they went from nagging each other and not having any form of accountability to actually being objective accountability, helped them work together. It just changed their farm just like that. It wasn't me, it was a process. Right? And I'm a firm believer that if you do that with your own family, all you have to do is get a simple, cheap little duotang and put it on the kitchen table. And after you have a family business meeting, you don't need detailed meetings. I mean, meeting minutes, right? You just need to have like the 5 points or 6 points of things that people got to do. And you got to say, who's got to do what by when, and how is it a priority? How does it rank on a scale of 1 to 5? How big of a priority is it?
Right.
So like 1, if it's a high priority, or up to a 3, if it doesn't get done, you burn money. Now, something like a 4 or 5, that's a lower priority. I mean, you don't have to have that stringency, but it's really important for you to rank things so that you're not burning money over somebody's supposed to be sweeping the shop and it doesn't get done.
Right. So with being accountable, I mean, you're sitting around the table and each one has their tasks to do. What about things that take more than one family member? Then is it just making sure that both of them are coming back and being accountable?
Well, there's the family. It's either a situation. There are some things where it takes two individuals. You can break down the tasks. So one person's supposed to do this, and then person's supposed to do that, and those individuals be held accountable. Or it may be a situation sometimes, like 5% of the time, where both family members have to burn $5.
Right.
If it's that important of a task, right?
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So,
and you've done this on multiple farms now too?
I've done this for 10 years. And you know, the thing is that some families, they don't want to burn money, right? I mean, it just goes against it. But I tell you that I've seen everybody do different things, from doing push-ups, all right, and making dad do push-ups, right? To, we have one family where they decided to have naked snow angels, right? So they had to go out in the yard and actually do naked snow angels. And if it was done the first time, then the second time you had to do it face down, right? And the thing is, that's funny. And it works for a couple of weeks, right?
Right.
But then July comes, right? But the bigger thing is that it just kind of phases and peters out. And like, I'm a firm believer that after a decade of doing this, you know, burning money, it creates an emotional response that I've never seen anything different. And, you know, I've seen in other studies, there's something called sticks, which, I mean, there's different accountability apps. And we actually work with a university to do that, but we just weren't seeing as good of results as the physical response of burning money, as opposed to put something on a credit card, like an accountability app.
Right.
It makes a huge difference.
Wow. So how many thousands of dollars have you seen burn?
Oh, a lot. Yeah, a lot. But the thing is, the question is, like, let's take the Kennedys, for instance. They burnt $5 and then they actually had to burn $10. So that's $15 spent, right? That was $115,000 mistake fixed. And more importantly is the relationship between the siblings. They've gone out and they've consistently, that's one farm where they have, we took them from, they were making about 6% return on investment on average to about, they're 8 now. So we've increased their return on assets by about 3% because of the accountability. I mean, the little things that slip between, like, I mean, if you have a meeting every week and you just find one idea to improve farm profit, then it's only $1,000. That's $50,000 at the end of the year that could slip between the cracks because you don't have that accountability.
Yep.
And the average family meeting that I have, everybody's got to come to the table with an idea that doesn't cost more than $1,000, but it's got to make $3 for every dollar you spend. Right. So if you got 3 family members coming to the table, let's just say they have an idea to improve farm profit by $1,000. Most of the farms, you know, it's a lot higher most times. But the thing is, that's $3,000 improved. A year later, that's $150,000, right? It really quickly adds up, but it only happens if you have the follow through on the ideas. And that's where we fail a lot more than I ever expected.
Right.
And I think it's a huge problem on every family farm, and it creates so much frustration as well, right?
So with this family, the Kennedys, was the dad involved in that operation too, or was he not in the picture?
Oh, the dad was the dictator in that operation.
Okay.
But the thing is that, I mean, he was definitely, that was part of the problem, is that it was father knows best, right? And the boys just didn't feel that they had any account of, there was a double standard. That there was a lot of frustration they had with dad. They loved their dad. They had a huge amount of respect for him. But it's often do what I say, not do as I do. And, you know, in that situation, what we did was we started meeting weekly, and we made one improvement in how they work and in farm profitability, right? And then we expanded it to one idea to improve how you work together. And that's what I like to see on every family farm is those two things, especially one production improvement and one improvement in how you work together. And for that farm, when I brought that up, it was actually the day that I showed up. We were about 20 minutes late to getting started because essentially one brother, we'll call him Harry, he was supposed to show up at the barn at 4 o'clock in the morning to start the milking. He sometimes was slept in, and he was about half an hour late. And as a result, that threw everything else off in the barn.
Yep.
And Harry's attitude was like, why is my dad complaining about me sleeping in when he's not showing up to the barn until 7 o'clock in the morning, right? And the thing is that what happened was that the treated milk, the milking procedures were late, right? And so they didn't start the treated milk. So one brother was really frustrated because he had to sit around. I think it was about 45 minutes until he came in the house, when he should have been in the house much earlier. And that's why we were 15 minutes late. So the day I showed up, I said, what's one way we can improve how we work together? The dad said, look, everybody has to show up to the barn on time every time, right? Or I said, what's the penalty? $5? And everybody agreed to it, right? And everybody thought that it was Harry. I mean, Harry had very low self-esteem, and he had a drinking problem. And in that farm, he had he was always a scapegoat for a lot of the family members' grievances, I guess you'd say.
Right.
That process of actually what happened is I came back 2 weeks later, and I said, how do we do for everybody to get in the barn on time? And the dad said, like, awesome. And he said, Harry, I'm really happy that you showed up to the barn on time. And Harry said, I'm glad you said that, Dad. But the truth is that you were half an hour late on Sunday morning. And the dad says, this is my farm. I can do whatever I want. I said, Mr. Kennedy, it's not his name. I said, you've got a decision to make right now. Either you're going to have a double standard, and as a result, everybody in this room is going to have a double standard, and you're not going to have any accountability at all in your operation. Or you got to be held accountable to the same standards as what your boys set. And he looked at me, and he was about to punch me, really. Like he was mad. And for him to go to he had to go, we were sitting in his house. So he had to go to his bedroom, and he never expected to have to burn $5, but he burnt $5. And that was a pivot point for that operation, because suddenly Dad went from being a dictator.
Yeah.
To being one of the boys and being held accountable to the same standards. And all of them were held accountable to the same standards. And like I said, like they poured cement for the new barn, but you know, to even 6 months later, like the way that they were getting along, I had a meeting just the 24th of December with them. And just the whole atmosphere would have been different if they had not burnt that money.
Right.
And had that standard. So,
and I'm sure it eliminated that power struggle real quick.
Absolutely. And that happens on a lot of farms. And how do you get rid of that? Well, have an objective measure. I've seen a lot of farms, they write checks to charities. we did that on this farm as well, but we went back to burning money. What was happening was Harry started writing checks to charities for sleeping in, and he felt good about it because it was going to the local Christian church, school, right? I mean,
Right.
they were the Christian Reform, and so they had a little private school.
Yeah.
And what he said, oh, it's not a big deal. And I said, that's got to stop. And so the thing is, I've seen a lot of farms where they write checks to PETA or charities they don't like. I had one guy, he wrote a check to Bill Clinton Library Fund. He doesn't like Bill Clinton at all, right? But and that's fine. But I tell you, and that's an alternative. And theoretically, as far as the IRS and the Treasury Department is, that's what we do with all our farms, right? But the thing is that, you know, you got to have an accountability that's objective, and it's got to evoke emotion.
Right.
It's got to be something that you got to be able to continue for the next 5 years, right? Rolling around in the snow and making snow angels, it's funny, but it's not going to last, right? So that it's that simple. It's really that simple, right?
Burning money.
Yeah, burning money.
Going by the sly.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I'm checking for questions. It doesn't look like anything's come in yet over Facebook or over Zoom. We do have a decent audience that's been established.
Yeah.
And I just want to kind of let people know, if you've joined us month over month, you might notice that some of these things are kind of connecting. I hadn't heard that story yet from Andy, so that was pretty good. But just, I knew that we were talking about accountability tonight, and I thought maybe something was up. Clearly it was. But the accountability kind of plugs into earning your respect every day, which we've talked about before, and just furthering that relationship, that partnership, moving from a child-parent relationship into more of a manager partnership, and getting your farm moving in the same direction, and making sure that those family members, all family members, are showing up to those Christmases and those Easter brunches and whatnot.
Yeah.
And that you're not talking about the relatives that you don't talk to anymore.
Yeah. And I think the thing is that I think what Caleb's saying, we have a course called Coming Home and Farm, and Washington Farm Bureau has Caleb found me, and he said, this is something we need in Washington. And he's brought this to young farmers and ranchers, and we're giving an 80% discount to every young farmer and rancher, every Farm Bureau member that wants to take this course. And what the burning money is one unit of the course. There's 15 different units. Next week, or next month on July 1st, actually, is a course that we're going to be doing. We'll be talking about how to earn your respect daily. And more importantly, the question is, how do you, when somebody goes to reach for an alarm clock to hit snooze, how do you change their mindset so that they're successful? And it's not just hitting snooze. How do you change the mindset of a partner, and not just a dysfunctional one, but every partner, so that they can become more successful and taking your farm from good to great? And we're going to talk about core values. And so that's part of the course. And we're talking about every month as we're just taking one unit and just glazing over it. But I really appreciate Caleb really bringing this program to Washington. And you know, anybody across North America can take this program. They can go to agriculturestrategy.com. But if you're with Washington Farm Bureau, go to Washington Farm Bureau's website, and you can get 80% off the course. You want to talk about the course just a little bit, Caleb, or what's your?
Yeah, of course. For that 80% discount, if you are looking for it and you can't find it on the website or anything, go ahead and shoot me an email or get in touch with our office, and we'll hook you up with a discount code to throw it into the website, so you do get that 80% discount. And that is for every family member. Every family member who's going to be involved in the farm has to enroll in the course. And Andy, for just this whole collaboration, Andy went ahead and gave me access to some of the course material. So I've been working through it and seeing it, and it is almost too personal. I mean, everything is so relatable to any farm operation, as far as your family dynamics and staying accountable on the farm and making sure people are showing up to work and how you work together. If one sibling has a focus in one area and another sibling has a focus in another area, how you get those two to work together and get to see eye to eye on the same page. It's very personal. You take the tests towards the end of each, or you reflect on your questions at the end of each segment, and then you get a meeting with Andy individually and then as a family as well at the end of this course, and he can really help you out getting moving all in the same direction.
Yeah. And basically how the course is structured is that there's 15 different units. Each is between 10 to 20 minutes. And you just listen to it like a podcast, just like you're watching us now. You can put it in your shirt pocket and work on the farm. I had one guy do it while he was mixing TMR every morning. And it just, at the end of that segment every day, you get asked one question, and it's really a thought-provoking question. And it might take a couple hours to think about it, right? But you can think about why you work. And then I'll sit down with you at the end of it. And if your whole family goes through the course, I'll sit down with your entire family and we can have a talk about the future of the farm. And the purpose of the course is called Coming Home to Farm. And basically in succession planning, everyone's always looked at the last 2 years that parents and their children are working together. And by that time, you know, the son and daughter are 35, 40, and everybody's butting heads and pulling the farm in different directions. And you have families that can't sit down and talk about succession planning because they've had 10 years of butting heads.
Right.
And so the whole purpose of the course is the first couple of years that you're coming home to the farm from university or career, being able to sit down with your family and instead of butting heads, evolving your relationship from parent-child relationship to professional relationship. And, you know, anything you can do to, I mean, you might get along great with your parents or your sons and daughters, and that's great. But anything you can do to go from good to great, as far as that relationship, that's going to improve Christmas dinner and more importantly, profitability. If you're able to communicate instead of butting heads, you're able to make decisions together. You're able to be accountable to each other, is what we talked about tonight. That can make a huge difference for farm profitability. And also get rid of all that frustration working with family, and farming with family becomes fun again for the next decade instead of dysfunctional, right?
Right.
That's Caleb has been brought us to Washington. We're doing this course at several universities, but we weren't doing anything with Washington State, and I really appreciate him being a leader and really bring us into the region. So really appreciate that, Caleb.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we do have some families that have signed up from Washington with Andy Junkin already.
Yeah.
And just so everybody knows, it's super confidential. Only Andy knows who he's working with. None of us state employees find out about it. None of the other members find out about it.
Yeah.
And so that's something to know. It's not like you're going to be broadcasted all over the place. Like, hey, thanks for joining the effort. Not at all. This is just you and your family working with Andy Junkin.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the way it's got. I mean, for doing what I do, I'll be doing this probably till I'm 85, maybe 87. Right. I mean, I secrets have to stay with me. That's all there is to it. So anyways, yeah. So, well, I think if there's no other questions, let's wrap it up. Caleb, it's been fun. And we're doing this on the first Thursday of every month, right? So next July 1st, we're going to be talking about core values, right? And and also just glazing on the topic of how do you get earn your respect. Okay.
Correct. I look forward to it. So we're keeping it shorter. Thanks for joining, everybody. Until next time, make sure you're getting everything done and holding yourself accountable on your own farm.
Absolutely. Yeah. And give me a call if anybody has any questions or needs any ideas on how to get this started. I live to do this. So just give me a call, holler 800-474-2057, or you can find my contact details on agriculturestrategy.com. You take care and God bless.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.